this is actually my frustration with the right. This is why I get pissed off at Republicans, is because they talk all this game about social conservatism, the family being the most important thing, all that kind of stuff. They're not going to enable any of it. They're going to use the same Darwinian fiscal conservative BS in order to slash the minimal social safety net that we have in order to screw people over even more. And as soon as they slash the social safety net, they're not suddenly going to be like, oh, hey, grocery store worker, suddenly I don't have to pay 20% taxes. I'm going to go ahead and include a dignified wage for you. That's never going to happen. So basically you have the corporations fleecing people. You have a government, according to you, fleecing people. I'm not necessarily saying that. And here's the thing is, guess what? It sucks to be a man, but that's what being a man is
being a man is not having to have your fucking wealth stolen by a fucking super state with guns.
No,
what the fuck are you talking about?
No. But it's giving your pair a tug and sucking it up and doing what's required anyways.
Yes, that is sacrifice. The very fucking evil I discussed.
Wait,
it's
sacrifice,
evil.
I can't
A man,
I can't understand if you're saying that sacrifice is evil or if you're saying that the government is saying sacrifice is evil. I can't tell.
Sacrifice is evil. That is what the government demands, and that is what people that justify
Why is
all of
sacrifice
these
evil? Sacrifice is one of the most fundamental human virtues on the planet.
Because you are giving up what you value for something that you do not value.
So that's not sacrifice.
Wait, so
that is sacrifice. As
hold on, because I don't value blacks and women, I can just not pay taxes?
Pause. I'm using sacrifice from an objectivist perspective, not necessarily the way that we might use sacrifice colloquially, and I apologize. Right? When I say sacrifice, what I mean is that you are giving up something because you have a moral duty or responsibility, even though you don't want to give up something. When people are saying you need,
I call that growing up.
That is not growing up.
Yes, it is.
No, listen. You're not getting it. What I'm saying is that it's perfectly fine to give up something that you want now because you value what you will get later. It's perfectly fine to give up, but that's not what fucking Social Security is. It's saying give it up or you go to jail.
Well, sure. Hold on.
It's saying give it up or you go to jail so we can fund welfare queens and we can fund an economy that is consistently fucking you.
This is the point, though. Okay. I think that the state has done a terrible job of justifying its existence. And
if only they sold the involuntary
I think
better.
I think that old people eating cat food is a bad thing. I think children from single mothers not getting educated. I'm not done yet. You've yapped for so long. Let me yap. Jesus. This is a yapping program.
Once argue against my arguments.
Give me the opportunity to yap.
You keep just saying talking points. Just actually argue against my arguments.
They're things I sincerely believe. What the hell are you talking about? I've heard you give talking points for 5 minutes. Let me give talking points.
I want to address something you said.
Jesus.
You said being a man.
Sorry, Ma.
You said it sucks to be a man. Grow up, deal with it. Something to that effect. I completely agree. It is the nature of men to stop being whiny bitches and realize you are going to get pushed in the mud, trampled over and stepped on every step of the way, and you have to get up and crawl through it. That will always be the case. I see a lot of guys on the internet saying it's unfair, women have it easier, and they don't like it. Exactly. My response is, and grow up, be a man. That being said, it is also the historical fact that men in these positions revolt against their systems and burn them down sometimes.
True. And that's where, hold on, dude, let me yap, Jesus Christ. So, sorry, Ma, sorry for taking the Lord's name in vain. Anyways, my point would be that if you want men to not revolt, men are capable of suffering. They're capable of going through sacrifice, positive, put parentheses positive after that word sacrifice. They are capable of enduring so many things as long as you give them a purpose in order to endure those things. And so when I say, you're saying like, well, sacrifice in the objectivist sense is I'm giving something up for something that I don't ultimately value. What I would say is, well, we need to value poor people. We need to value the marginalized. We need to make sure that they're productive. We need to make sure that our soft power and our hard power are all over the world, because I do genuinely think that America has the best governing system on the planet, and I want that to spread across the entire world. So, sacrifice, positive, is a part of this. But we're not selling young men on sacrifice, and we're also not giving them a fair shake either. We're sucking everything out of them, and then we're not giving them a fair return.
Can people opt out of that system?
Sure. Move to Alaska, live in a cabin.
Alaska's pretty nice. They got long summers. People don't realize long growing season. The watermelons are huge.
Pay less taxes. You're going to pay taxes in Alaska.
But you get a surplus in Alaska. They pay you.
Yeah, for the oil.
They pay you a dividend, but you're still going to pay sale tax. You're still going to pay gas.
Sure.
Still going to pay income tax. Your taxes are going to be more than that.
Okay, go to South Sudan.
Actually, real quick. Everything's substantially more expensive in Alaska.
Yeah.
It's not so much the taxes; it's getting milk to Fairbanks. You know.
Sure.
Well, yeah, for sure.
You want reindeer milk?
Well,
might have that.
that's also what happens.
That's what you pay for liberty.
That's also what happens when the government
Alaska.
comes in and takes up like 3/4 of the land and then won't let people use those resources.
We should invade Alaska.
No, so again, listen. I'm trying to connect these things, and it seems like maybe I'm not communicating it. Maybe the topic's too.
No, you're doing it fine. I just disagree.
No, well, you haven't actually argued against anything, so that's fine.
I think
I'm talking about a process here, and you're saying we need to give men purpose. I agree, but the thing is that you can't centrally plan cultural change and the way that genders are valued. Like you can't. Like what has occurred is that you have taken away their role, and you can't just go, well, I'll teach classes that teach men to be badass, or I'll sell these ideas.
You literally just said that
What contradiction?
The government has robbed people of their sense of gender roles or whatever, and then you said that you can't centrally plan it.
That's not a contradiction.
Yeah, it would be because
No, they robbed people, and the consequence.
The
consequence. That's not how contradictions work.
It could be
at all.
accidental.
No, I'm saying they robbed people
right.
to solve this presumed problem that they fucking created with regulations in the 1920s.
I reject what you said. I reject
know,
what
because
you
you
said.
don't
There
know
was
the
a real problem in the 1930s, which we all agreed to, which was effectively that the depowered fraternal orders were insufficient to deal with the economic moment.
Yes, government caused regulations, and then government
if the
reacted
if the
poorly
fraternal
in the Great
you're
Depression.
saying- so you're
and
saying
then they
if
came in with a
tens-
fucking Band-Aid.
So you're
it took them
saying
100
if
years.
in the 10s and 20s, the fraternal orders had continued to exist, the fraternal orders would have been able to bounce back the Great Depression.
I think that there is a overwhelming amount of evidence that policies such as the New Deal and FDR elongated and made the Great Depression worse.
I think
yes,
there is
that is absolutely true.
Underwhelming amount of evidence that the fraternal orders would have been capable of dealing with the Great Depression.
I think that Keynesian economic theory and this concept of prime the pump has failed us many, many times, and that individuals ought to research the Austrian business
You
cycle.
say this. We are inside a room covered in international goods in plastic
What
that
the
we
fuck
all
does that
drove
have
and
to do-
flew because we're in the most
been your
successful,
whole
rich
argument the whole
society
time.
that's ever lived. So why are we saying that we failed?
Brother.
We didn't fail. We succeeded.
Brother, I've
Actually-
made so many arguments, and then all you have responded with. Come on. Let me make another one.
This is not conducive to the debate. I got to say, like, just saying over and over again, you're not addressing the debate doesn't actually move the debate forward.
As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure I addressed exactly what you said.
What I would argue is
You didn't.
the definition of a successful nation. I would argue that you can say we've become wealthy. The
Materially successful.
Materially successful. However, there are challenges. One thing I like to point out to a lot of these lefties is that a poor person in the United States today has better dental care than Rockefeller did. It's an old trope, it's an old joke, and it's because of technological advancement. But you do mention that we're surrounded by plastics. One thing I would argue is, right now we're dealing with all these tariffs, right? And I was watching the TV as I often do, and a man said, "Why won't anyone buy our beef? We've got great beef. Why won't anyone buy it?" The argument being that they put restrictions on us so that they can capitalize their own internal markets for the sake of their economy. I would counter the reason foreign countries don't buy our goods is because they're full of poison. We've got artificial chemicals and crap in them. And so the reason we don't sell Pop-Tarts in Europe is because Europe has banned TBHQ and artificial dyes in this way. So
Very tasty.
I got a bunch of them downstairs, but they are full of crap. And so my point is, when you argue that we are the most successful in history, I wonder if that is, if we were to quantify what it means by success, could we argue that we've become the most decadent, but arguably self-destructive through our wealth?
It's Rome. We're 100% in Rome. And so give me some latitude, okay? The Rome, I do anyways. I watch Gladiator, and I see the Patriot that is Maximus, and I'm like, God, that looks cool. Like armor, gladius. I know fire arrows weren't a thing, but they look fantastic. And, riding horses, Spanish estate, like all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, man, that is a cool society to live in. But the truth is that Rome was corrupted and ultimately destroyed through its decadence, through perpetual war, through colonialism, through imperialism, through corrupt senators and corrupt consuls of Rome and all that kind of stuff. And so the thing about it is, I'm really proud of what America has achieved already, but the truth is that there is a spiritual rot. I think we all agree that there's a spiritual rot, and liberalism, capital L, the governing system, is not sufficient to deal with the spiritual rot of our society.
I agree.
And so
That's my whole argument, yeah.
But I don't think that eliminating the federal government is going to solve that spiritual rot. I think it needs to come from us.
I feel like I'm kind of in between both you guys in your points, but I think you just made a really great point that one could argue that welfare does enable certain things, but the issue that I largely see, often discuss, is spiritual rot or a cultural decay. I would refer to it as such. We don't have community anymore. People don't come together.
Yes.
This is not just a governmental thing. It's a technological thing. It's you could argue. I think you guys are. It's like that problem where there's the 6 and the 9 on the ground, and you're looking at it, and you're looking at
It's a 6.
and right. And so I think what the argument largely is, you overwhelmingly view it as a problem of the state. You overwhelmingly view it as a problem of industrialization and tech.
Or spirituality.
No, I disagree. The debate topic is about welfare, right? That's why I'm focusing so heavily on welfare. Again, like I said, I don't want to ever do a univariate analysis. Again, when I bring up Amelia Durkheim, right, in functionalism, right, enemy is about, like the concept of normlessness is about, the division of labor in society is about the Industrial Revolution. It's about moving away from an agrarian lifestyle with their extended families into cities where now we have the nuclear family and we're less connected. Like these things all interweave and interplay. It's a chicken or egg scenario.
The reason
my argument, let me be quick, right? Like my argument is that welfare is a component of this and that it's not helping and that there are better ways to do it and that the market does it better. I'm not arguing that welfare is the sole reason feminists exist or modern problems. You know what I mean?
Let me ask you a question. If we were to today say we are going to phase out the Social Security system, do you believe elderly people would die?
Well, I think elderly people are already dying, right? Like I think.
Okay, would they die quicker due to starvation, dehydration, neglect, and lack of care?
I mean, it depends on what do you mean by phase out? Because if I was going to phase out Social Security, right, I would say everyone that is 18 or everyone that gets a worker's permit 16 above, right, you no longer pay Social Security tax, and also you're not going to get any. Right, like we have to begin to slowly take the beginnings of the market and phase it out.
So hold on.
You implement that over the ensuing decades, will people die from neglect and starvation?
So
I think we would be far more prosperous and less elderly people would.
That's not the question I asked.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry, I was.
Well, let me add this. The estimates are around 2.5 to 4 workers need to enter the system for every Social Security recipient. So should we implement your system where we say 18, from this point on, no more Social Security, you don't pay, but you don't get? That would still collapse the system largely. The question is, if we were to end Social Security in any capacity, would it result in any number of increased deaths of elderly individuals?
I would expect it to.
Again, I would say it depends on how it's implemented or what it does. But yeah, there's probably going to be poverty in some degree. Like you're pro tariffs, the Trump tariffs, right? As a negotiating tack at the very least, right?
Well, I would say that I'm pro tariffs as a strategy. As Trump has implemented them, I'm a bit skeptical, but willing to see where it goes.
Right, exactly, right. But so you recognize that there is some level of pain when we've been getting fucked over by other countries that say, okay, now we're ready to play ball. We're going to have some pain in order to play ball.
My question was about the death.
Well, no. So I'm using it as a comparison, right? If we have the CBO has said by 2050 we're going to be $121 trillion in debt, and mostly that's Social Security, right? There's going to be some shocks. There's going to be some economic growing pains. I don't know whether or not that's going to lead to death because I don't know. As I said, with the Hayek quote, right? Centralized systems destroy spontaneous order. When you pull those systems out, I don't know that there's going to be more death.
I think
in the long run will definitely be better, but in the short term, I don't know. Maybe.
I don't think anyone believes you, and I in that specific point, and I mean that disrespectfully.
No, of course.
I have no problem saying that when recessions hit, people die.
Oh, for sure.
If we were to shut down in any capacity Social Security today, I believe that would decrease the lifespan for the existing elderly, would likely result in death. I have no problem with admitting these things are likely to be for simple reasons. I just think that people need to be honest about what you get from them. The challenge, of course, is then humans are largely scared to admit that they'd be willing to accept death to correct the system. Sometimes you might have to, but my thing is
can I be more frank then? I am absolutely willing to accept death. And even if old people die because the Social Security goes away, I'm willing to say not only that they die, I'm willing to say that it was more just than Social Security existing and keeping them alive because taxation is theft and it's evil. What I am saying is that I can't commit one way or the other that taking away one of the biggest tax burdens that on the entire economy is necessarily going to lead to more death, because I don't know how the market will respond to that.
So I think the likelihood is that it will, but in the same way, taking away alcohol from an alcoholic or heroin from a heroin addict would kill them as well.
Right.
It might be better in the long term.
But it requires an intermediary of some sort to prevent.
Right. I just don't want you to think I'm being dishonest. I'm just I just don't know what the economy will do.
My point was, and again, I didn't mean it disrespectfully, is that,
of course,
I feel like most people thinking about this, even if they're thinking we shouldn't have the Social Security or welfare state, know that it saved lives, even if it created problems. Like in the Great Depression, elderly, many were impoverished, dying. They were finding bodies. And so they said, okay, we better intervene. Otherwise, how are we going to pay for the body removal? Like, there's bad things that happen, even if it's one person dying. I think as adults, we just recognize we try to save lives all the time. Sometimes the act of trying to save lives could make the problem worse in the long run.
It's enabling, right? Sometimes it's enabling. Well, like you wouldn't buy heroin for a heroin addict just because they'll die without it.
But hold on, you
actually
see? Yeah, sorry.
We have clinics that do this.
And
sure, you would taper them, et cetera, right?
No,
like,
well,
that's
hold
kind
on,
of
this is perfectly metaphorical. So for instance, like in Switzerland or whatever, they have clinics that are state supported that effectively give you the exact amount of dose that you need in order to get through your day. But in the meantime, they're trying to help them with all the things that have addiction issues, like employment or re-engaging with their family or becoming a part of the community again. And so what I would say is that like government can be intelligent. We are used to a very dumb, very ineffective form of governance in the United States of America, but I still think that government can be done in intelligent ways. And then one of the things that I wanted to bring up was we were talking about the spiritual rot that's inside the United States of America. I think that what would happen if we cut Social Security, even if we tapered off, we are such a self-centered, hedonistic, nihilistic culture that I almost guarantee you that if there were like 20-year-olds who were going to school and getting their first job and grandma is like on the side of the road being homeless and they had to make a choice between buying the PlayStation 1000 or feeding grandma, they're going to pick the PlayStation 1000.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War podcast. We're live every Friday, 10 a.m. to noon, so subscribe and come hang out.